And tonight is a study session, and it's about that formal to get going on a study session. So Joel, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Town Council, for the opportunity to share this discussion this evening. My name is Joel Champagne. I'm the Deputy Building Official here at the town. Joined here by Ed Kotlinski, who is the Chief Building Official. Erica Thorley, Sustainability Manager. Troy Jones here is with Shums Coda, and he'll be assisting us with any technical questions you may have. I think that's it. The purpose of our study session is to have a discussion on code updates to the National Electric Code, the International Fire Code, but more specifically, the Energy Code updates. We'd also like to highlight that any code adoptions that happen after June 30th of this year will reduce our options and mandate us to a minimum adoption of the state's model low energy carbon code.
So we wanna make sure we get changes done before July 1 if we wanna make it.
Great.
So we lose control basically if we do nothing.
We have less control, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Our goal is to provide council with clear options and gather feedback. To be clear, staff's recommendation is one of several paths forward as it pertains to the energy code. So a quick overview, the building division is proposing the adoption of the 2024 International Energy Conservation Code. Other options include the state's model low energy carbon code and the Metro Cohorts model code as well. We believe adopting the 2024 IECC provides the town with a practical, timely path forward, minimizing retraining of staff, does not require plan revisions from our customers, no re-reviewing of plans by our staff, and at the same time providing increased efficiency and reduced costs. Your feedback tonight will inform our upcoming ordinance. The scope of and the intent of this update, we're opting for a focused update rather than a full code overhaul. The energy code update aligns with the town's adopted sustainability and comprehensive plans that we stay on the most recent energy codes, updating on a 3-year cycle. Our goal is to reduce disruption to our staff and our building partners while still making measurable efficiency gains into the built environment. We want to address this now in order to get ahead of the state's mandated updates, giving the town maximum flexibility. Our goal is to make this update prior to June 30th, 2026 deadline. Any updates to any codes after that date triggers requirements to adopt the state's model low energy carbon code or something even more stringent, but not less stringent. Acting now gives the town an opportunity to pursue a more flexible and locally controlled path forward. So our proposed update, we're recommending adopting the 2024 IECC with electric and solar ready provisions as mandated by the state and our currently adopted codes. Include strengthening amendments to simplify enforcement and provide some electric preferred provisions. These two would be similar to what we currently have in our code. We also want to adopt the 2026 National Electric Code to align with state requirements and the 2024 International Fire Code as recently adopted by Mountain View Fire Protection District. The benefits, the the 2024 IECC versus the 2021 IECC improves energy efficient while at the same time reducing long-term operating costs and reducing building costs. This represents a balanced step forward, meeting the town's sustainability goals without introducing significant upfront cost impacts. The alternatives. Number one, the Model Low Energy Carbon Code, put together by the Colorado Energy Office, is a more aggressive code based on the 2024 IECC. It is an all-electric preferred leaning stretch code aimed at significantly higher efficiency and electrification. Option two, the Metro Cohort Code, that's been developed by the Metro Regional Energy Code Cohort, a collaboration of local jurisdictions in the Denver metro area. The group's primary mission is to standardize building energy codes to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and achieve zero emissions for new construction by 2030. This code goes further and is more restrictive than the state's code. Both these codes come with added complexity, limited compliance tools, and additional staff training needs. If I can provide a few examples of what I mean here. Example number one, although both codes are built upon the 2024 IECC, they include significant amendments that substantially modify the requirements. Here's a copy of that code, and I'm happy to pass it around. Everything highlighted in blue are changes to the code, so you can see there is a significant difference between the two. So they're not apples to apples, they are two different codes or three different codes. As building officials, we have significant access to resources put together by the International Code Council to help us with code interpretations. Things like interpretation manuals, code commentaries, illustrated handbooks, technical support, evaluation reports, and our state chapter. The same resources would not necessarily be available to our staff should we adopt these other codes. Issue number three, some of the compliance tools designers use to determine compliance with the energy codes, such as ResCheck and ComCheck. Designers have free access to these Department of Energy compliance softwares. They determine code compliance based on the codes that are being used. As of today, this software would not necessarily be compatible with the Model Low Energy Carbon Code or the Cohorts Code. These other codes can create greater uncertainty around construction costs and implementation in the near term, with newer codes being more complex by including tiered requirements for based on the size of a home, the fuel types, and on-site power production. It becomes more challenging to enforce. Specialized staff are needed, and at this point, I don't believe that our town is ready for that challenge. The graphs up here show you estimates for construction costs based on the 2021 versus the 2024 IECC. These are estimates, and they're provided to us by the National Home Builders Association, so I don't have any other resource, but we're gonna go with these tonight. What's highlighted here is Climate Zone 5, which is the climate zone the town of Erie is in. If you're building an all-electric house using the 24s versus the 21 code, you can see a $6,600 reduction in cost. And if you're doing a mixed fuel home, same thing, you'd be able to see a $3,700 reduction in building costs using the 21s or the 24s over the 21s. And here, same graph, but comparing the 21 IECC versus the Model Low Electric Carbon Code. Climate Zone 5 again, if you're building an all-electric home, you can see an increase in cost of $12 and a mixed mixed fuel homes seeing a decrease in building costs of about $1,100. So the feedback we're requesting from council is do we proceed with the 2024 IECC with amendments? Or evaluate alternative codes such as the state model code or the Metro code? Or simply retain the status quo and stay on a current version of the energy code until we're ready for a complete code update to the 2027 code cycle, possibly sometime in 2028 or 2029. Staff recommendation supports adoption prior to June 30th to maintain flexibility. Delaying beyond this date limits options and requires a shift to at least the state's model code. With that, we'd like to open things up for any questions or concerns you may have, and we'll do the best we can to answer them. Our hope is that this feedback we receive tonight will guide us with a clear path forward.
All right, maybe before we get into just the discussions, the HBA sent a letter. Do you have any thoughts, opinions on their letter?
I read their letter, and what they've recommended was adopting the 2024 IECC with no amendments. I don't think that's feasible, as some of the solar ready, electric vehicle ready code requirements are part of what's mandated by the state. So we have to add that to our code. So there will be some amendments regardless. So I guess that's my
Okay. Yeah.
best input I can give you on that letter.
Okay.
There are requirements that we will have to adhere to that are not in this other upgrade, or not upgrade, but change.
So what we're proposing is the 24 IECC with amendments, and that would include the electric ready, solar ready. These other codes that are written already have those built into it.
Right, but there's even more that we know.
Well, there's more to it than just those requirements, but those things are already built into those codes, so they wouldn't have to be
We would be
added.
taking a partial step towards the new state mandate. Sort of.
What we're proposing is what I like to say is a good first step in that direction until we have clear guidance. Like if somebody says, from council, we're looking for guidance, and you say, we want to get to net zero for all new construction by 2030, then this is that first step forward, and the next step would get us closer, and then by 2030, we'd be looking at doing a net zero code. So we'd probably be looking at this adoption plus two others before we can get to something like that.
And the big ticket items, I guess, for full compliance with the state code, is that mostly the electrification, the full electrification of homes, or what are the cliff notes for between these? I don't know how to compare these other than just taking your recommendation and flying with it, which is might have to do.
I'm gonna probably pass this over to Troy, and he can.
So, in the energy code, there are baseline requirements that you have to do as a prescriptive measure. There's also optional methods that you have to do to get compliance. It's getting 10 points for a residential structure, 15 points for a residential structure by upgrading your HVAC system or putting in better air barriers, things like that. So the 24 IECC on those options has lower point requirements. The MLECC, the state code, and the Metro Cohort Code, the MCMC, both have much higher requirements for that, and also break it down into 3 areas. So in that area, the area square footage of a house, if it's 5,000 square feet or less, is 10 points. If it's above 5,000 square feet, it's 15 points in the 24 IECC, so in the International Energy Code. In the MLECC, it goes to 3,500 square feet, gets you 10 points. From 3,500 to 5,000, it's 15 points. And above 5,000 square feet, it's an automatic net zero. Same with the MCMC. So once you get into the bigger houses, they have stricter requirements for energy consumption and more optional requirements on that. That's one of the things on there. The bonus of the MCC, or of the MCMC and the MLECC is that the IECC requires commercial projects, all new commercial buildings, to have solar photovoltaic. Both the MLECC and the MCMC took that out, but that is something, if council wishes, can be adjusted as well in an amendment. The State of Colorado Energy Office says that that's an acceptable method.
To everyone, I just want to introduce, this is Christine Brinker from SWEEP, and you will have to define SWEEP for me. Southwest.
Sure, Southwest Energy Efficiency Project.
Thank you for
Sorry
being
I'm
here.
late, I have some family issues that came up.
Did that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, no, it did. And so then this July date that we're driving towards or trying to avoid, I guess, any change we make to our code at all after that date triggers our need to comply? Or
Sure, so
so
any
we'll have to
code,
leave it static for 3
any
years?
code updates that happen after that date require us to adopt the new energy code as well.
So our entire
So
code needs to
if,
stay
let's say we
static for 3
decided
years
to
then?
wait on the electric code updates, and our electric code updates happen on July 2nd, we will also be adopting the energy code.
So we would be looking at hopefully no code changes for 3 years. Is that normal?
And codes update on a 3-year cycle. The town of Erie is kind of a unique place, right? Most of the work we do here, I'd say 80 to 90% of what we do here is single-family residential, townhomes, that kind of stuff, and we don't have a real big commercial project base. So the residential code doesn't, when they update residential code, there's not a lot of changes that really affect the building of a new home. So by adopting every other code cycle every 6 years, the entire code cycle kind of saves us effort on our staff's part of having to re-review plans. Our builders have to resubmit their plans and update them. And most of those updates are basically taking the same house and then changing all the code references. And so that's part of so we're trying to reduce the impact on staff and our building community by adopting or revising our codes, updating our codes on a 6-year cycle rather than every 3 years. And so we're just choosing these codes now to get ahead, state, like I said, the sustainability goals are to update every 3 years, the energy code, and our fire department's already updated their codes, and we're just staying in line with what they've done. And the National Electric Code is updated every 3 years, and the state requires jurisdictions to adopt that every time the state adopts it.
Right. I needed a level set on those dates, so thank you.
So what I think I heard you say was you recommend adopting IECC 2024 with the already required state mandates that are already in place for solar ready and is that what
That's correct. Yeah, so currently, our current code, the 2021 version, we have these requirements in our code. We've already amended it and we're requiring EV ready, solar ready, electric ready, as well as some strengthening amendments that are kind of electric preferred strengthening amendments. And we're kind of proposing a similar path, doing the same things, adopting those same amendments and some similar strengthening amendments that are kind of electric preferred amendments.
And then we're also adopting the 2026 NEC. So what were the changes between 2026 NEC and 2023? Were there major changes or?
That's a question I don't have an answer to. But like I said, that's required by the state and it's kind of
Okay, so
given
it's
that
state
we're gonna-
mandated.
It's state mandated,
already.
whatever they adopt, we have to adopt within a year of their adoption. So I haven't looked at all the changes and I've got a few guys on staff that could probably give you more information, but I'm not quite as familiar. But nothing that's gonna be a huge impact that we can foresee. Is basic stuff that they do on a 3-year cycle.
And then the International Fire Code, additions, are they also state mandated? Or what are the major
Right.
changes there?
Sure, so our fire protection district is who enforces the fire code. And they have adopted the latest version of the International Fire Code, the 2024 version. And so what we're doing is taking their adoption with all of their amendments and just putting it into our municipal code. So we're mirroring what they've already adopted. Because we don't wanna be enforcing a code that they're not enforcing, a little conflict there, we don't want that.
Yeah, so, basically, yeah, we ask them to approve, building plans and whatnot, and they do it per their code. So
Exactly.
we need to be in
Yeah,
line.
so any commercial projects that come in, it's all, guided by the International Fire Code. And so they're reviewing to those standards and we have to be, our customers need to know that that's what we're enforcing. Because that's what they're gonna be reviewing to. So they gotta know which ones to submit their plans with the information that's needed.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
I was curious, I can't seem to bring up the slide, and it doesn't matter. The slide that has the cost savings, that the builders submitted, I think that one, how are they achieving the cost savings?
Sure.
Going from 21 to 24?
Okay, so some of the cost savings are realized by, so what happened, I'll give you a brief history. In 2018 Energy Code, some of the R values, prescriptive R values that were required were changed in the 2021s and increased in value. So you went from an R49 requirement to an R60 in the attic, so let's say, as an example. And this 2024 version has gone back to those previous values. So they've reduced the R values that are required in our climate zone in a couple of different areas. So they're seeing some cost savings there. And then I believe some of the compliance paths have more flexibility than currently written. So I think the additional energy requirements, right now we have like 5 options to choose from. And now there's a whole table full of options, so you have more flexibility in how to get to the required points that you need to meet code.
Okay.
I think those are kind of the 2 areas we can point to easily to kind of give you an idea of where they're getting the cost savings.
Okay. And do you have a sense of why they reduced that? Did they feel it was not needed? Like they are rating the.
I don't really have an answer to that. I think at some point when it comes to things like that, you get to that law of diminishing returns, right? Like you can put a whole lot of insulation, but is it gonna, give you any value? It might give you a little bit, but so the more you put in there, the less that you gain from, less efficiency you gain from that. So I think they kind of got to that point and maybe we decided to reevaluate that.
Can I add?
Of course.
I heard 2 different things, 2 different perspectives. One was diminishing returns, which you can see makes sense. And the other was that some of the advocates for energy efficiency made some trade-offs in order to get other things into the code, in particular the EV ready electrification and some of those other things that then got appealed and then taken out. And at that point, it was too late to undo their trade-off. But that's how the process goes. The process was fair, right? Above board, but that's what happened.
But the amendments we have in our code does require ready for EV charging and all that.
Currently do and currently being proposed in this next adoption.
And required by state law. So
And
what
required, correct.
when they moved it to appendix at the national level, that didn't really affect us here.
Thank you.
Thanks. Other thoughts, questions? Anybody disagree with the direction staff is heading?
Just question as far as what, EV ready, is that just like they're offering additional like 220 outlets or what, what does that look like on a practical.
Yeah, you wanna take?
Yeah,
might
so
be a little more
EV ready is basically getting things pre-wired for putting in an EV charger. So you would have conduit and wiring. Your panel box would be sized to be appropriate for the future installation of that. It saves a bunch of remodel time
Sure.
and a lot of money because it's a whole lot easier to put it in when it's brand new than to go back in and try to install it at a later date. So you have connection points that are terminated at the panel that says, hey, this is for future EV use only. This spot's saved for that. And then out in the garage, you'd have a blank plate on the outlet. Nothing's hooked up, but when you're ready to do it, then you can do that at a minimal cost.
And the similar theory goes to solar ready where they run the conduit, they save a space on the roof where no penetrations are allowed and kind of dedicate it to future solar panels. Same with future electric appliances. So let's say you've got a gas stove, a gas clothes dryer, or a gas furnace. You have to bring wiring there capable of handling the loads for any future appliance replacements. So if you decide to take that gas appliance out, you have the infrastructure's already in place to just plug in your new electric appliance.
Go ahead.
I have a quick question. So I'm on the oversight committee for the Powerhead Colorado initiative, which is the building decarbonization grant through DRCOG. And so I know that one of the things that we talk about in those meetings is the subawards to different jurisdictions, and that I think policy and codes are one of the eligible uses that you can apply for. Is that something that the town of Erie has considered or is actively pursuing?
I think
know that
Erica could speak to that.
Yeah, me too. So are you talking about the BPC subaward? Or are you talking about additional funds?
yeah, Paco, yeah.
Yeah, so the Building Policy Collaborative subawards for jurisdictions in the DRCOG region, we did apply and we were awarded. We just signed the contract yesterday. It's a $600,000 grant between now and September of '29. And we have earmarked those funds for actually an in-house consultant, so working with a group like Shums Coda or similar, to actually bring in an expert to help advise in these situations. And that also includes some training, conference budget, things like that for staff and electeds as well. So we're hoping that we'll have, that expert really that can come in and support these conversations, because it is complicated for sure.
Yeah, okay, so for training and training.
Training, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, so
Yeah.
that's great.
Primarily, it'll be for the in-house consultant. Staff was not comfortable with bringing on a temporary position in-house.
Mhm.
And so instead, we found a balance and a compromise with this consultant that we would bring in from another group that would really work as an Erie staff member that would be really focused on this. And it'll be a hybrid position between our planning department and our sustainability division, so that we can really overlap in these areas.
Great. Wonderful. I think this sounds like a really great way to kind of navigate all the new requirements. So when we adopt new codes 3 years from now or 6 years from now, will it trigger then again the MLECC?
Correct.
No.
No.
So if you adopt the codes right now, before July 1st, then you have the grace period till 2030. So if you adopt another set of codes till then, you're still accepted with the codes that you adopted
Till 2030.
till 2030. At that point, then there could be a change.
So everyone get ready. We got 4 years. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I see this as a first step. If we're able to bring in a consultant to help us plan for the future and put together a plan, present it to you all, and you guys let us know what you want to do, then we can start implementing it and taking those next steps to getting to wherever that goal is. And, I'm assuming that a code like the state's code is probably going to, in our future, in our very near future.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Oh, sorry, I did have.
Yep.
Yeah, so, just curious, in an event like so like the Marshall Fire event or something like that, somebody's having to rebuild. I know Louisville at that time, they kind of grandfathered those people that had already been in there just because of the cost of rebuilding to kind of bring that down. Is that a consideration in this, or would they have to, if their house burns down and they rebuild, they'd have to meet this current standard?
Yeah, as it as it stands now, I mean, if your house is burned down, whatever new home you build would have to be built to today's standard.
Okay.
So,
And I can just
Yeah.
speak to experience.
I mean, that was
The council actually had to come back and change a number of
Yeah.
codes to help for the rebuild.
Yeah.
They were moving down this line and then they came back and made a bunch of changes to help reduce some costs for.
But the interesting piece of that, and you probably know this well, Meredith, is that 70% of folks that had rebuilt as of mid to late last year built to the 2021 International Energy Code or stronger. I mean, a lot of that was because of the Excel rebates that were brought to the table as a result of the Austin fire.
Sure, yeah.
Some of the other big fires, like in Sonoma County in California, they've only seen like 6 to 7% of people actually doing that. So the Marshall Fire was a really unique case study for that, because they did make those exceptions, and yet 70% of people built to stronger, that level of code or stronger, even though they had a choice.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just thinking like, it's one thing when a whole bunch of houses burn down, but like if an individual house burns down and you've already got utility connections that are there, like that makes it very difficult for that individual house to, make that decision where, you have that sort of economy of scale if you have, a whole area that can do this.
And can I add one other piece of context for Louisville? They had an extra special and very, very expensive code package in place at the time. They're the only ones in the state. There might be one other. Appendix RC, and it added some $30,000 to the cost of a home. And that probably wasn't a good idea to have that in the first place, but it was a much bigger jump. And so just going up to the base code would have been fine and was what people were fine with, but it was that extra part that added way too much pressure for an already horrible situation.
Sure. Yeah, thanks.
All right, I'm not seeing any dissension to the path you're on. So I'd say carry on and get it on the agenda.
Yeah, I think this is scheduled for April 14th.
Okay, so it'll come back pretty quickly. Okay, all right,
Also,
great.
if you don't mind me interrupting for a minute, I'd
Yeah.
like to mention that Ed over here,
Yeah.
this is his second to last day with us.
Oh,
How
say
many
what?
years have you been here?
10.5 years, I've worked for the county.
He's luckily retiring and
Yeah,
going on to enjoy.
I'm sitting here, back here, but yeah, I'll be retiring at the end of this week.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Hopefully you've got some great retirement plans and.
Lots of plans. Nothing in the immediate future, just take it easy.
Ed's gonna be humble, but he's jumped energy code for the town dramatically in the 10 years that he's been here.
Yeah, we were under a very outdated code when I started with the town of Erie.
Yeah.
So,
All right,
yes, yeah.
well, great, thank you all. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is 2026 237, and it's a discussion of a proposed ordinance in the county of Erie consolidating all provisions of the Erie Municipal Code related to penalties and enforcement of code violations. And Sarah, I saw
It's
Sarah.
primarily me.
Oh,
It's just
it
not
says
working
it's Sarah,
today.
but she's leaving
It does.
us, so-
She's like, nope.
Take it away, Tom.
All right. In December, there were two cases before the Colorado Supreme Court. They both involved Denver and Aurora. Both Denver and Aurora had certain municipal offenses that the penalties were higher if you were convicted in municipal court in Denver or Aurora than if you were convicted of the similar or equivalent crime in state court. And it was a home rule issue. The municipalities felt. Unfortunately, the Colorado Supreme Court disagreed, said it was a fundamental fairness issue. And so the penalty in state court and the penalty in municipal court for the same offense must be equivalent. That happened in December. Our judge issued an administrative order saying that we were not going to sentence anyone more strictly than the equivalent state law offense. But what this does is this allows for an off valve. We really appreciate what the judge did. My recommendation is that we formalize that. What this will do is it will say explicitly that if for some reason there is a crime that we missed, then if there is an equivalent state sentence, that's the penalty that she will impose. What we also did was pull out the references that are scattered throughout the code. It makes it a little unwieldy for folks, pushed it all up into 144, so that way there's one place for folks to look. It's also easier on staff, so we don't have to try and remember to change or update anything as it cascades through the code. So this is a modernization, pushing the sentencing provision up here to bring us into compliance with the 2 Colorado Supreme Court decisions, and then to make it easier for folks to look at our code, understand what the sentencing requirements are for the various offenses. And so what you'll see in the packet is the proposed ordinance. 144 is the general penalty that applies to municipal offenses, and then the subsequent pages, all we're doing is we're not changing the context of the municipal offense, we're taking out the sentencing piece and having it all reflect up in 144.
When will it come to us?
If this is comfortable for you, we can do it in fairly short order.
Just clarification.
Sure.
I probably don't understand completely, but, so, okay, let me get my notes. We had talked about, as a home rule town, we're able to impart fines and fees on different things. I don't think it'd be a criminal offense. But, you know, when an oil and gas operator openly vents or has a spill, or I know it's a violation and doesn't take care of it or whatever, is this, those kinds of things, would those be addressed under this? Do we have, I thought, it was my understanding that as a home rule town, you can be more restrictive than the state on things like that. For example, in 2017, there was a botched plug and abandon next to a school here in town. And there was a notice of violation issued by the state. We were statutory at the time, so we were not able to enforce any fines or fees. And the state opted not to, so there was no penalty. Does that fall under this part of the code, or is it separate?
There's a couple of layers in there, so I'm gonna take it apart a little bit. The cases are specific to criminal offenses.
Yeah.
So for instance, car theft, you would spend more time in jail if you were convicted in Denver than if you were convicted of car theft in a county court under the state penalty. So it is a home rule issue, I think. Unfortunately, that argument did not carry the day. This is specific to our criminal offenses. So if there is an equivalent criminal state offense, there will not be a difference in sentencing. If it's 10 days in jail in Erie, it better be 10 days in jail under a state conviction. What is unclear from the cases is what that does generally to our home rule authority. So the answer to your question is sort of, because there are some
Depends.
Right, that's my favorite answer. I'm gonna get a shirt that says it depends. And what this does though is that this is our general penalty, and it's specific to things like jail time, fines, etc. We have additional penalties, particularly in Titles 9 and 10, where we're dealing with, we can take business licenses, we can issue stop work orders. Those will still exist, but this is just moving all of the fines and potential jail pieces up into one location. So we will only see the changes for those other, I'll say, non-criminal offenses if there is the ability to put in fines as well. And we're pushing all of that up to 144 instead of keeping it in Title 5, Title 9, Title 10. So this primarily is going to the criminal offenses, but we do have options for non-criminal offenses to put fines in as well. And so that won't change. The reference is simply coming up to 144. But this is primarily for our criminal offenses.
Okay. Well, section 14.10.12.7 is called out in the code, in the draft ordinance. So it looks like it kind of addresses Article 12, but
Do you mean section 14 of the proposed ordinance?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in Title 10, we have the ability to put in fines if people are inappropriately not having inspection or whatever. So all that's doing is it's eliminating the reference that used to be in there for the penalties and pushing that up to 144. Nothing is changing other than it's simply, we're just drawing an arrow that says we can put in fines as well as
Okay.
other pieces. And so nothing will change other than the reference. There will no longer be a reference to 144 in 10-12-7. It's going to be up in 144, so we can take all the same actions. It's simply a clarity issue in my mind.
Okay.
So that way there's one place for folks to look to see what our fine schedule is.
Well, I hope someday we'll include fines and fees. We've been talking about it for a couple of years, so.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see, I guess, and we'll have to see how it shakes out with the Supreme Court ruling.
Are you, Councilmember Rivera, are you aware of another municipality that we can take something they've done in this space to help us all understand?
I'm not, and I think that's part of the problem is we're all kind of saying who's doing it first.
In the same place?
Yeah,
Okay.
and you know, if it's kind of shifting to, yeah, I don't know. I think that's,
I'm certainly open to it. I know we got a lot on our platters right now, but sooner, if there is
I'm gonna put that on the list for the
a
new manager.
draft.
maybe it's just opted out.
They can do it.
Right, I get it.
Hand them the cue first.
So in section 3, 647, throwing missiles.
Yep.
We like that, so.
Yep.
D, it's unlawful for any person to knowingly project any missile at or against a bicyclist. I've had stuff thrown at me, but what about people on scooters and skateboards and other wheeled recreational vehicles?
Wheeled recreational vehicles is sort of a longer term project for me, because I understand that there are many different types of fun devices that people use to maneuver not on their feet and not in a car. And so one of the longer term projects, Chief has graciously assigned me voluntold a couple of officers to come, and we're going to learn about all the fun types. So I do believe that we will start modernizing that, but it is a capacity issue. So
Fair enough, if it's on the radar, then that's.
It is on the
just-
radar.
It just seemed very specific, and I understand having been hit by things, but it just had me thinking
Yeah.
of other users.
yeah, so at some point, one of the longer range goals for my office is to go through and figure all of these fun devices out and then go through and what I would anticipate is we'll bring to you some code proposed changes to say, oh, look, there's all these whatevers. But yeah, it's on the radar.
And just for clarification, it may not fit exactly under throwing missiles, but if somebody throws something at you and hits you with it, give us a call. There's other things that we can look at in terms of criminality. There's assault, there's reckless endangerment, there's all kinds of things that we can do it. So don't think like, well, if they're riding by on a bike, they can throw whatever they want at me. Just because it doesn't fit there, we'll
Okay.
find something.
Fair
So
enough.
give us a call.
Sometimes it's hard to get a plate number.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Someone you knew or?
We'll get them with littering if we can, whatever, we'll get them with whatever.
There's options here.
There you
There
go.
are
If they're
options.
throwing it in here at you, that might be a First Amendment issue.
I'm just wondering if there's a legal definition of missile.
Hey.
There
I'm
actually
thinking
is,
of
it's like any object.
something
Yeah,
with a.
there is actually, you do define missile,
Any
yeah.
object or substance.
It's any object
It's
or
any
substance, it could be a cup, it could be a.
Yep.
Doesn't have to have a guidance system
No,
or.
no,
It's a
no,
missile
we
if
are lo-fi as well as high-tech.
That's right.
So for now, kids on big wheels are fair game.
No, didn't you hear me, Councilman? Not fair game, not.
All right, let me move us off
Okay,
this
sure,
topic. I think you have
I will
direction.
look at this and
I just had one question on section 10 where it talks about engine combustion and dynamic braking devices. I mean, don't we have trucks driving through town that, have engine compression braking or?
We do, but they're not allowed to use
use
them.
it.
Okay,
It's the
So if you
Jake
hear
brakes.
that hammering.
Yeah.
That's, they're using their jake brake or
Right,
their
right.
acceleration brake. And they're not, there's an ordinance, we have signs posted at the town limits saying they're not supposed to
Okay.
use it. So again, get a license plate, tough. But you can certainly call us and we'll try and address that issue if it comes up.
Okay, great, yeah, cause we've got all kinds of trucks driving through town, but
And
I
it
didn't
happens.
realize that they weren't allowed to use it.
And you'll hear that, you'll
Yeah,
hear.
that's
yeah.
great, cause you think about going past a school or something like that.
They
Or
can
down
get
Vista
really
Parkway,
loud.
like I hear every once in a while.
Yeah.
You have to save that for, they'll pass,
Yes.
not for the middle of town.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
All right, we're gonna
Okay.
move on to item 2026-238, a discussion of a proposed ordinance of the town, council of the town of Erie, adding a new section 61018 to the Erie Municipal Code regulating sitting or lying down in public right of ways. Back to the attorney.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's start with her.
Yep, we can start with her. This is a proposed ordinance for policy setting for council. When I joined, there was a packet for me and this was part of the packet. So I understand that council would like to have a conversation about whether we should or should not regulate sitting or lying down in a public right of way. One of the things that you'll wanna think about as we talk about policymaking is how assertive you would like the ordinance to be. This is drafted to allow no sitting, lying in a public right of way. There are some exemptions, as you'll see through there. So it's medical emergency, it's utilizing a mobility device, operating or moving in a space related to a commercial establishment or parade, festival, etc. And then during something that's furnished by the town. So for instance, I'm thinking of a bus bench or a bus shelter that would be exempt from sitting or lying in the right of way, waiting for public transportation. So this is a policymaking conversation. Have that conversation with council, see if council is interested, see if you'd like any changes, but this is at least a first draft for council's consideration.
This is totally separate from what we see over at our shopping centers, which is on private property, so this wouldn't apply to that.
Yeah, that's correct. My understanding is this would just be public rights of way. So we looked at it, this is very popular in places like street malls or places where there's businesses that have access off of that public right of way that's, on the sidewalk, where you don't want folks necessarily lying down or sitting there or doing their daily business in the right of way to access those businesses. So you see it on the 16th Street Mall, like Larimer Square. I think Denver had something that said you can't sit or lie down there. We don't have a lot of areas like that. It might be applicable on Briggs, but we don't see that issue there either.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is just public right of way.
Correct.
So what triggered this audience? Is it like, are we getting a lot of cases or?
Well, I mean, we're seeing, like the mayor said, we're seeing folks on our private property where they are sitting at the entrances where people pull in. It's not necessarily the public right of way, people drive there, but it's a parking lot. And so as far as the public right of way goes, we're not seeing folks on the median at 287 in Arapahoe very much. We're not seeing folks at County Line and Erie Parkway on the median, those kinds of things. We're seeing them more on private property. So I don't know that this is a pressing issue for at least the police department right now.
How did it come to the level of an ordinance? Who puts it here?
As far as why we're talking about it,
Yeah.
it was part of a bigger package of other ordinances, and we passed, I'm trying to think what the other two, I think it was the fire ban and
There was some, the e-bikes.
E-bikes.
Yeah.
it was discussed all as a package at that time, and this one can,
How are e-bikes and this related?
they're not, it's just code
So
change.
I was just looking at like, what is triggering this to be considered as an ordinance by itself, and others I see like code changes, there is a need. And I was just trying to get to why we are talking about
Yeah,
this.
I mean, it's basically.
Or
as
who put this on this one?
I put everything on the agenda, or
You put
Meredith
it.
puts everything on the agenda, right? Or we work together to put it on the agenda.
One thing I'll say is this is a kind of ordinance that we're seeing in other municipalities. They're doing it in places where it is an issue and it's something you might want to discuss. It's, again, like Brina said, I think it's a policy issue for the council to decide where do we want to land? Is this the time for this ordinance? Where are we at?
So is there any downside? I guess I'm trying to understand the big picture. Right? It's the first time we've had a chance to talk about it.
I think that depends on your perspective on what you would, if you're trying to solve a current problem or if you're trying to future-proof.
Because this is really preventing camping.
That's actually later.
This is not. The next one is, no, this is not.
Should we talk about the other one first and then?
Well, before you go there, because is this, I mean, to what you're talking about on private property, I mean, essentially we're talking about panhandling and those types of issues. So if there, because I know some municipalities do have panhandling ordinances, would that apply to private property or is that not?
Let me jump in here.
Okay.
You can't. I was going to say the same thing you are, but
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
I want you first.
panhandling is likely protected First Amendment activity.
okay.
So there is
Yep.
going to be a very, very narrow use case for it ever to be used. So it would be more along the lines of somebody who is extremely aggressive, not taking no for an answer, causing a disruption, being in, blocking ingress or egress. The use case is extremely narrow. Courts routinely hold that panhandling is protected First Amendment activity.
Okay.
So we would not be able to.
Okay.
Even some of the ones on safety and standing in the median have been questioned.
Because what will happen is, in communities where fire departments do things like pass the boot,
Sure.
we will then move along our firefighters. This would be an ordinance for everyone, whether you are doing it for charitable purposes or not. So you would wanna think about the law of unintended consequences here because you won't be able to carve out other types of expressive activity.
Yeah.
You can stand with a sign almost on any public right of way as long as you're not obstructing traffic. Doesn't matter what the
Yeah.
sign says for the most part. We just
We
have
don't
one on
look at
Saturday.
sign contents, okay?
Exactly. The
Reed
Supreme
versus Town
Court
of Gilbert.
lets them have First Amendment rights. So, yeah, it's very difficult to limit.
I
that
think
type
at
of
least the
activity.
one, we had maybe one or two emails that we saw on this, and I think the main primary concern was safety because they are so close, but if the right of way, so I'm understanding this right, so like the entrance to Safeway or Lowe's off Erie Parkway, if they're on the corner adjacent to Erie Parkway, is that right away or is that considered part of the private?
That's
Oh,
private
throw
drive.
that out there.
That's
So
really
the
private
right of way
drive,
from my
isn't it?
experience varies depending on the roadway. Sometimes it's wider, sometimes it's smaller. Sidewalk is usually the right of way. Usually anything inside the street signs, so think speed limit signs, anything like that that's the right of way.
Okay,
And so if they're up on the median on Lowe's, that is not the public right of way, that's private property.
okay.
And the sidewalks internal to the
Yes.
development would not be considered public right of way. That is private property.
Yeah, there's a bunch of trash that I got a couple people reached out and then I just coincidentally was walking there and I saw it and then it was cleaned up the next day, but it was probably in the right of way because it was not in that median, but it was out.
Well, and interestingly enough, property owners are responsible for cleaning up that right of way, even though the town
It's
technically,
town-owned.
town
Like they have
owned.
to shovel.
Yes, but the property, it's just like when you've got a Broadway on your yard, you're responsible
Sure.
for the maintenance there. And they're usually pretty good. The property owners have been really good with our code officer going out and saying, hey, there's an issue here. And I think even Lowe's has some folks that go out several times a
I
week.
mean, yeah, they.
Yep.
In general.
It'll happen and then they clean it up.
Right, so I'm not hearing a pressing need for this or it's gonna do much. It's-
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. And I think, we have the opportunity, since this is not really a priority or an issue in town, we have the opportunity to help and lift people out of this sort of issue where they're sitting or lying in the right of way. Or we have the opportunity to make it exponentially worse by creating a scenario where they come in contact with law enforcement and then eventually, get a ticket or citation or a fine or fee that they can't pay, and those build up and then they're arrested, and then it just creates this incredible cycle that's just impossible to break out of. So I really think that this could do more harm and create more problems than the intention, the unintended consequences, as Brina was talking about. So I actually have done quite a bit of research over the last month on this to understand what it looks like in surrounding communities, and it was illegal. The Ninth Circuit Court ruled this was unconstitutional. We couldn't even have these rules until 2024, and the Supreme Court overturned that, and it's a reversal of precedent. And so there have been more, I guess, of these, but I think they'll be challenged as well. But I also met with their co-responders, and we have kind of predictably about 4 folks, and so this would be a pretty targeted issue, and it's not necessarily even in the right of way that we're talking about. So just doing a deep dive over the last month and meeting with a lot of different people, and the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless sent me some information, and I met with Commissioner Loachman in Boulder County, and the co-responders was very thankful. They had a lot of great perspective for me. So I think that this could have the unintended consequence of increasing sort of what we're trying to decrease in town. So those were my concerns with this. And I think, this is a great discussion point. Perhaps there's opportunity for us here to get ahead of the problem, since this is not a serious issue in our town. Look at ways to invest in and connect folks to community resources. Our co-responders, for example, can't buy bus passes for folks and just hand them over. So what are I think we have the opportunity maybe to have a conversation with our co-responders to talk about what are resources that would be helpful? What could we do as a council and with our policy that would help to lift people out of a situation like this and increase safety? And because that's always, I think should be the baseline. So, I have many pages of notes, but those I'll kind of stop there. But I think we should look at ways to support and do that in a way that is hopefully not going to accidentally increase the issue.
I totally agree about the lifting out and not getting caught in the spiral of jail and, getting out of there. Can we even approach somebody sitting in the middle of a median panhandling and just ask them if they need help, or or do we pretty much hands off?
No, that's generally our approach. I mean, and we'll get calls. I think we sent out some information we had about 50 calls over the last 6 months, welfare checks, where folks are concerned that someone's out there in danger or not,
Kids with them.
Yeah, kids with them or something like that. And we always approach with how can we help, or how can we help this person? That's what we do. We call the co-responders. We see what resources we can provide them. We can do those things. And we try to lift them out as much as we can. The hardest thing is to help someone who doesn't necessarily want the help. And there are those individuals out there that don't want to be bothered. They're mistrustful of the police. That's why co-responders help a lot. But even with our co-responders, sometimes they don't want the resources. They want to be left alone. They want to do what they do. And while I completely agree with Councilmember Barrett, it's not a huge issue with 50 calls in 6 months for our officers. It aren't a ton, but they are increasing. I mean, I think it's something you just got to be aware of, and we will we'll approach it. Even if we pass an ordinance, our approach to this will not change. My officers are very skilled with de-escalation and crisis intervention, and we're not going to just go out there and start throwing handcuffs on people. In fact, the ordinance, I think, the ones we have drafted prevent that. Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're going to try and help them first. We're going to let them know what resources are available and encourage them to go there. And if it becomes a persistent, continuing problem, which it can in some communities, then you have another tool to use.
At that point, there would be other ordinances to stand on to
Right.
intervene.
Yep.
So a couple of things that I learned from my research is it's not in Erie, but it's on our doorstep. It's in Denver and it's in Boulder, and it being homelessness and lack of resources. And so what we're talking about is in 2024 to 2025, there was a 69% increase in young families finding themselves homeless. That's a huge increase. And women, and particularly women of color, are more vulnerable to becoming homeless than the general population. And our veterans are a huge percentage of homeless people who are sitting and lying and or camping. And the one really encouraging statistic that I read through this is that and 76% of people who have been sort of had that intervention in Denver or Boulder report having a disability as well. So, but the one really encouraging thing is that between Denver and Longmont's really targeted approach to addressing homelessness among veterans, they were able to decrease that by 16%. And that's just so encouraging because they really put some resources and some intention behind addressing it rather than criminalizing it, and we're able to move the needle on it. And I think that's where we could really look at this and say, what can we do to get ahead of it? I mean, to be able to, as a town, what can we do to connect people to resources? And I mean, we have amazing community-based organizations from Sister Carmen to Together to Mother House and EFAA and all kinds of things just right in our region that we could really be investing in. So I think, I mean, before it becomes a huge issue in Erie, we could have a plan and be strategic.
Okay, so I think overall, I think we're good, just not moving this one forward. Private property, if they have no loitering signs, that's up to them to deal with, or do they call you if they have no loitering signs? or-
Yeah, when you have, and loitering's a tough one because you can't make it illegal to just be there. But the property owner can say, hey, this person is here causing this issue, whether it's trash or they're bothering my customers, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
They have the right to call us and say, I want this person off my property. And we'll get that on occasion. That does happen sometimes because the person's causing a disturbance or they've done something that's disrupting the business.
You'd still approach it the same way, right?
Yes,
With just
absolutely.
help and
Yep,
good.
absolutely. And we lead with co-responders and resources and try and help them and get them to where they can be in a safer place.
All right, let me log back in and take us to our last one.
Yep. Camping.
Camping. I want to read it so that if anyone's watching the tape and trying to look it up, they can look it up. Or somebody else can read it.
I can read. Discussion of a proposed ordinance of the town council of the town of Erie adding a new section 6-6-17 to the Erie Municipal Code to regulate unauthorized camping in town.
So this is another policy level conversation. Councilor Bear is correct. The Ninth Circuit had the case was Bell versus Boise, and there was a companion case out of Grants Pass, Oregon. And in the Ninth Circuit, it was unlawful to enforce any no camping or loitering ordinances unless there was a shelter bed available. The government had the obligation to prove that there was a shelter bed available. Only at that point could you take any enforcement action. That case went to the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court renamed the cases for procedural reasons that don't matter here. And the case is called Grants Pass at the United States Supreme Court level. And in that case, they said that the Ninth Circuit didn't follow or evaluate the case appropriately and struck that part of the court order. So this particular ordinance is for discussion for council for policy setting reasons. This would ban camping on public and private property without written permission from the owner. And this is for council to decide if this is something that they are interested in, what the parameters would look like, what policy goals you have with this. It will be some a little bit of a challenge because written proof is the evidence that would be needed under this ordinance. We could talk about what that would look like. We could talk about how far council wants to go. We could change it to public property only. This is drafted fairly broadly. This is another one that was drafted, and when I joined, it was as part of the packet going forward. So here for a policy level discussion to see what council's interest is in this particular ordinance.
What's the, I guess I don't get the private, because if somebody wanted to pitch a tent in my backyard and I want them to, no problem. If I didn't want them to, wouldn't I just call the police and say, hey, somebody's trespassing on my property and do the same thing?
This is designed for, I imagine, the right-of-way conversation, because if there is a business that is closed, doesn't answer the phone, whatever, this would provide some enforcement tools for those types of situations,
All right.
is my guess, based on what I'm reading.
And maybe during the pandemic, we had some of this, maybe we didn't, I don't know. Do you run into this at all?
You'll see this a lot in large parking lots, like Walmart, Lowe's, those kinds of things, where the business owners I don't wanna say they don't care, but they don't, like, you wanna park your RV on the Walmart parking lot, it used to be, they'd be fine with that, and you could park there and camp there and live there, and then it starts to create, you get more people, and then eventually, but this is designed, I think, to address those situations where the property owner is not taking action, like, hey, get them, I don't want these folks on my property, and just allowing it to happen and creating kind of an issue for the community, is my take on it, for private property. Because you're right, currently, if they call, you
You can
can't,
trespass.
yeah, we can trespass them and have them leave.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm thinking of
Hold on,
this,
let's
sorry,
go
I'm
to-
sorry.
Councilmember
Guess I
Hobart.
would look at this similar to the last one. It seems like it's a so complicated solution looking for a problem. We don't have the problem.
Well, we don't have a problem, but what I worry about, and again, I don't see this in Erie, but my daughter lives off 120th, so I'm oftentimes driving by, getting off I-25 and 120th, and there are huge encampments, right off there, and then again, people panhandling, and it's an extremely dangerous situation. And so I look at this for maybe, we don't have anything out there right now, but if it ever became an issue off Erie Parkway and I-25, especially if we ever get development out towards there, and I know that's years of the thing. So, and I've talked to several people at CML kind of about these types of things that, and discuss this with Mayor Thornton about that specific intersection. So that's again, it's not about, to me, it's not about like, somebody is on a street corner or has an RV in a parking lot. I don't think that's a big issue, but I think there is a safety issue when people are doing this, right, under an underpass, under the highway and coming up. And so, balancing those two things, I think is important. So I'm not saying this needs to be a hot issue now, but I think maybe keep this on the radar.
Yeah.
Be my
Well, our neighbors Lafayette have this ordinance or one very similar to it. I think it was drafted looking at that one. And I think you're right. I think it's to address the large encampments, the things that pop up where you're starting to have some community safety issues. And we haven't seen that yet in Erie. Could it be coming? Maybe? I
I
don't know.
know Lafayette has some issues on the Coal Creek Trail in
They do.
particular.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were having some issues around Walmart as well that they were trying to address. And we did some research with them. We asked them, how's that going? How's it? They enforce rarely. They have the same approach we do. They haven't taken many to jail. I think they've made 2 arrests in a year with just those who what they find is voluntary compliance. That generally people are okay moving on once they get told that there's a no camping ordinance. And they go somewhere else. And they do provide shelter resources and those things. So
Yeah, I think
Where would shelter resources be?
Boulder,
Boulder.
Longmont, Sister Carmen a little bit, although it's not shelter, that's more
Yeah.
food and resources, but
Yeah, I'm okay not doing anything with this one. I think if we had a case that, you know, was a problem and you couldn't do something about it because we didn't have this, then yeah, I think I'd be open, but yeah, it's a solution to a problem we don't have yet, and so I'm okay just hovering unless there's strong desire.
I'm fairly lukewarm on this one, if we don't have a problem.
And I don't wanna give the impression too that we can't, like, even if we were to have a problem with a certain property, we would work that property on. Kinda like we did with King Supers on the street racers gathering down there, we're gonna go talk to that and say, hey, what they're doing is not necessarily illegal, but it's causing an issue in the community. Can you work with us and let the street racers know, hey, this is not okay? And we'd continue to do that. We don't need a no camping ordinance to do that. We would obviously address any community concerns.
Any other? Okay, I think that's it, and it's
You're welcome for all the
Yeah.
time back.
7:11, and we'll officially adjourn this study session. Thanks.